So I'm looking there on my hard drive, particularly at all the game footage I got sitting on there, and I have a lot of footage of games I've just never finished or just weren't interesting enough to do a full review on. So I'm going to take some of that footage and mush it together and do an impressions video of some of these games. If the game's a commercial game, I'll stick some $signs in the corner to let you know, but there's going to be a couple of free ones on here, so let's do this and maybe you'll see something that interests you. Endor, I can't quite pronounce that. A turn-based strategy game set in a fantasy world. You'll expand your territories through building armies, upgrading your cities, finding valuable relics, and of course, war. The combat apparently doesn't really have any animation to it, but you know what, it's completely fine. The battle system is good enough to make up for it. Huge story, epic battles, and it's challenging. If you like turn-based strategy games, this one you're probably going to check out. It's pretty cheap on Good Old Games. Lego Wolf 3D. This is kind of a reimagining of the Wolfenstein game if it was done with Legos. It's not really story-driven, it just gives you some scenarios to choose from, some of them pretty neat, like this Pac-Man level. So it's not a very complex game, but it's kind of neat to play for a little bit, and seeing Wolfenstein and Legos, yeah, it's kind of cool. Final Fantasy Avalanche. This is a Final Fantasy VII fan game that takes place a little after Final Fantasy VII and turns it into a brawler starring Tifa. You'll run through these gigantic mazy levels, fighting hordes of bad guys, gaining new attacks to use, and special items to buff your character. It has a story going for it, a multiplayer mode, which I've never actually tried, and this thing is actually quite an impressive creation. It's not spectacular by any stretch, a little jittery, real lack of enemy diversity, but if you like Final Fantasy and brawler games, this might be your cup of tea. Truck Racer. This is a budget title racing game that I bought at the dollar store. Now, unfortunately, its vehicle physics and its turning don't seem to be too realistic. Along with that, it heavily punishes you for mistakes, so it's not a casual racing game. What I really didn't like, though, is you have to unlock every vehicle and every track one by one. And it's a little frustrating, you have no flexibility of choice. So yeah, it's challenging, but it just doesn't feel very realistic. It's too difficult for casuals, but not good enough for hardcore racers. So, you know what, I have no clue who their target audience was. Aliens, the board game. This was a Flash fan game based on the actual Aliens board game. It's turn-based and you'll use various characters from the movie with different weapons and abilities. There's 3 scenarios evolving around key scenes from the movie, and this game is just as tough as nails. The endless hordes of aliens are so overwhelming, and if you don't know what to do in this scenario, the trial and error will be really high on this one. You're looking for a challenging turn-based sci-fi that's free? Maybe check this one out. Golden Axe Myth. A fan game of the classic side-scrolling fantasy beat-em-up game. This one has the famous trio of heroes, with Death Adder also being added as a playable character. It keeps most of the classic gameplay ingrained, such as riding mounts, its famous potion collecting, and of course those oversized enemies you run into. The art is pretty fantastic in this, a nice cartoony feel, and there's so much attention to detail. This is an incredible labor of love. If you like classic beat-em-ups, especially Golden Axe, this is a good choice. Rune Spell. This is a fantasy card battling game, but you use regular playing cards where you make poker hands to do damage. Really odd for a fantasy setting game, but it's actually pretty enjoyable. You can buy special abilities to aid you in battle and win powerful allies to wreak havoc on your foes. You'll travel on an overhead world with multiple paths and side quests, fighting minions and various bosses. It's a universe with its own lore of mystery and intrigue. Battles can be quite tough at times, as sometimes it's luck instead of skill, but the creators balance the difficulty curve pretty good here. Due to the limitations of poker, the game does feel a little over-repetitive for the battles, but it's not that bad. So it's a weird mix of poker and dark fantasy, but the results weren't too bad. It's kind of a neat game. Gun Road. This is an anime game in the style of those classic arcade shooter games. The art style is great, and you're going to need some good reflex and hand-eye coordination on this one. It's just a crazy bullet storm, and I've never been good at these types of games, but I did like this one. Just fast-paced shooting madness, it's always exciting. Maybe check it out. Braveheart. A strategy war game based on the hit movie. This game was said to be the blueprint for Rome Total War, but heck if I know. So the thing with this game is I didn't have the manual for it, so I couldn't quite figure out for the life of me what the heck I was supposed to do here. It's quite complex in its management system, and I'm just cycling through menus trying to figure out what to do, and I couldn't figure out how to get the game rolling. None of my armies are moving, and I just got so frustrated, I just gave up with this one. But looking at what I have seen, this looks like it's no kiddie strategy game, looks pretty deep, so maybe it's something you might want to check out, but sorry, that's all I got. So I hope you liked our little look at some of the games I've never finished there. Hopefully you've seen something there that might have interested you a bit. Anyway, thanks for watching.